Herstertis, www.reddit.reddit.com, RHFF, I comments, NFXU, out of cruel space partuna, antlers, assumptions, and artillery. Observer Wu makes no move to intervene, nor hide himself as he watches the enormous drill instructor put the recruits through their final paces, and honestly it looks more akin to shaking the last bit of rust off a group of soldiers who somehow lost their conditioning. After an hour of drilling, the recruits are sent back to their barracks and their final preparations before their day off before graduation, at which point the instructor marches up to them. Observer Wu, sir. Thank you for not interrupting the final bit of polish. Nay. I am the observer, not the meddler. I admit I do not recognize you out of hand. Observer Wu states, and the instructor removes the campaign hat and hunches down a little. Sorry, does this help? Bjorn asks as his posture shifts. My goodness, man, what happened to you? You've put on twice your previous body weight in sheer muscle. No. Lean muscle, no less. Bjorn states, how? I was originally assigned bodyguard duty to a workout fanatic. If she could have, then she would have lived in a gym. It comforted her, and to maintain a lowish profile I worked out next to her. New dear. And how did that end? I'm married to her. Bjorn remarks, and Observer Wu raises an eyebrow before the wind starts to shift, and he's forced to respond. There the sound of world howling. That sounds like a conflict of interest. Observer Wu is forced to more or less shout. Perhaps this conversation would be best in my office. At least so we don't get overheard or interrupted. The winds tend to shift fairly violently on days like this. Days like this? Observer Wu demands. There is always a very, very light amount of snowing, not enough to matter, but the wind is the big issue. Many days it's calm, then we have entire weeks where the winds are loud, shifting and obtrusive. As it is now. Bjorn explains. This way! He leads them into the training area, to a smaller building within the arcology itself. The office itself is fairly small, but very straightforward. Bjorn puts his campaign hat on a very specific spot, and there is a beeping from the garment. What is that? Simple computer incorporated into the hat. The bottom of the brim lights up with information about recruits. With all the different species and requirements for them and such, it's unreasonable to expect a single person to remember them all. Even if I dedicated my life to it, it would still take too much space in my mind. And as the galaxy is a living place, it would need constant updating for memorization. Bjorn explains before he picks up the hat and presses a few buttons hidden on the thigh. Underside. The lights up faintly and shows that it's scanning for the ID of the recruit it's pointed at. Camera in the band? Observer Wu asks, and Bjorn points to the tiny buttonhole camera on it. Very practical. Bjorn puts that hat back on its stand. The stand is to recharge, debug, and update the hat. It would take a last second update for me to be off guard and uninformed about a recruit's needs. And she now. Speaking of, I saw how you handled that Lidris recruit. An 8-bodied Lidris with 6 brain cells shared among 7 heads. Domda Pearl. We have an agreement. Whatever head is addressing me is clearly devoid of any and all brain cells. So the 6 little beans he has are rattling through 7 bowls. Bjorn says, yes, about that. You handled him fairly gently. Compared to your own drill instructors, there would be an entire series of exercises, and a great deal more haranguing, wouldn't there? That's where we have to consider the galaxy in general. This isn't like Earth, where the average man in training is some idiot with aspirations to be a hero. Okay, it's not all that. We still get those, but we don't get people coming in expecting to be Rambo or the next Captain America or whatever. A lot of our male recruits are here because they desperately need other men to be around and purpose. They have energy, they usually have an education, but they've spent their entire lives in gilded cages that are only a step or two up from a padded cell with 5-star room service. Bjorn explains with a shake of his head. So my main job isn't so much as to beat out the hero complex or break them down so they can be rebuilt. They've been melted to mush before even getting here and need to be built up instead. The environment trains resilience. The endless team exercises encourages them to turn to each other, and the actual exercise puts both discipline and strength into them. Couple that with the dream training and things go fairly well. First, what is dream training? An evolution of memory downloads, which themselves are a modification of how we can get an empty clone to suddenly be effective, which itself is an evolution of the memory retention aspect of a healing coma. Makes sense so far. Linterburden. Yes, but why not the full download? Not everyone responds well to it, and there can be bits and pieces, missing, or worse identity issues. You don't usually find what's missing outside of comprehensive training or a clutch situation that they unexpectedly fail at. Dream training is slower, but it allows us to pack our recruits with subconscious information while they rest with barely more than a 0% chance of some kind of identity crisis. Normally, the information is safety protocols and how to better move. It lets us blaze through a large amount of training and minimize accidents to a pittance. Kyle. I see. What about physical conditioning? It's also accelerated by the state of the galaxy. A touch of axiom healing and you can push recruits to extreme levels over a few days, and have them basically regenerate stronger as you do so. A bit of rucking from rocky area to rocky area, with packs and gear that grow heavier with every step and wearing totems that cause you to recover but refuse to let you use axiom. To get stronger means that we can get these boys fairly tough in a few days. Granted, they're usually planning all sorts of revenge. But when they come out of it, they can carry each other in full kit at a solid run for half a kilometer, which I think is a good thing. I handle the basics after all, and watching out for and being capable of supporting your fellow soldiers is as basic gets. So I'm assuming they go into more advanced training shortly. Correct. Then after a week and a half of light duty, I start the next batch. Bjorn states Storchendia. A big change from bodyguard work, isn't it? The big reason for the change was that Holly grew comfortable enough to actually live without 24-hour protection. What happened to her and why she and some others needed our help was a big wake-up call to a lot of Undaunted. Bjorn says before reaching into his desk and pulling out some papers. I was honestly expecting you sooner, so these have been taking up space in my desk for a while. He lays them onto the desk for Observer Wu to read, and he finds it's a modified NDA. It specifically excludes cruel space. Are you not afraid of information coming back? ECCA. There's already been some level of leaks through other means. We've determined that if the information comes from people fresh out of cruel space, then it will be regarded as insane rumor rather than truth. There's already so many stories about humans and humanity in general, that what I'm going to tell you about Holly and her peers is the sort of thing that will get lost in the details. Whoosh. Very well then. Observer Wu says before giving his gar. DS a look. They understand the meaning and leave the office to stand guard outside. He reads it over again quickly and then signs the non-disclosure agreement. Bjorn accepts it with a nod. Have you heard of the Dark Cabal pirates? Some. Vicious mind-bending horrors that enslaved worlds and burnt them to ashes in their wake after culling the population. They stretched themselves too far and were torn apart by their rebelling slaves. We found a survivor. I assume you're referring to one of the pirates and not the slaves. I am. She was going under the name Darla Swipe, and she had learned from her previous failures. She was still a brain-bending horror, but none of her victims could escape without outside help, and she kept the numbers small. a group of 5 elite enforcers to use fear and violence to keep a hidden organization thoroughly under her thumb. Not in Sa. And how did she do this? She used an axiom totem we call a persona nail. The details are beyond my ability to declassify. However, in summary, they are shaped like railroad spikes made of kutha, and they're impaled into the back of the victim's head. They then hijack the body with a new dominant personality. In the case of Holly and her peers, these personas were of insanely loyal enforcers, obsessed with being as deadly as possible, and never so much as hesitating no matter the orders Miss Swipe gave them. Each one of them mute, psychotic, and sadistic. None. Dear God. As you can imagine, the brutal enforcers of a twisted and evil mob boss weren't exactly popular. So we relocated all of them after rescuing these poor women. I was assigned Holly, who had been persona nailed to become Knife-Atop, and helped her deal with the trauma, separate herself from that life, and now that she feels she's made a full break from it, she is employed as a physical trainer to assist Titan Squad and other modified Unduanted in adjusting to their modified physicality. She also runs physical education programs to bring civilians up to speed to prepare them for basic. And have there been issues? Some. Individuals who were personally brutalized by Knife-Top recognize Holly as her and tried to get to her. But we've intercepted them all and cleared things up. Bjorn says before patting his left shoulder. The brand means I was able to outright grab the muzzle of plasma and laser weapons and block the attacks with my palm. And Holly, how has she recovered? She remembers what Knife-Atop did. But the removal of the nail buried most of it halfway into the subconscious. Most nights she wakes up shivering and holding tightly to me, terrified of the images of pain and brutality that Darla Swipe forced onto her. In her waking mind, she's still somewhat affected too. A big thing about Swipe's persona nails is that when the enforcer wasn't actively enforcing, they were reclusive workout fanatics in order to be healthy and capable of enforcing her will. Holly has retained the persona attributes of being heavily workout and health-focused. That's horrible. And to think, Holly might have it the easiest of the 5. Knife-Atop was the most recent persona nail created. She was only active for 15 years, which was half of Holly's life, but still less time than the other 4. She was 15 when she was turned into a monster. Observer Wu asks. Yeah, it's made Holly quite the character. She goes out and has fun like a child one minute, and the next she's contemplating mortality and frailty. It made things awkward at first. I was treating her as a child, but she hasn't been a child since that damn spike first touched her. Bjorn says, looking away. Everyone has it, you know, that point in their life where they're no longer a child and become a full adult. For some people, it's a wonderful moment where they step out into the light to be their own person. Others, it's a slow realization that you've been doing things for yourself because no one else would. But for others, it's the moment someone made you their victim, and afterwards nothing was ever the same again. Holly was the youngest person to be hit with a persona nail, and the one who had hers for the least amount of time. But she was the one that lost her innocence to one, and proportion-wise, she's had one for more of her life than any of the others. That's that I noticed that the NDA was only for information about Holly and the Knife-Top persona nail. That is correct, Bjorn says. Are the others at least making a recovery? Yes, but not as thoroughly as Holly. Her youth is a strength in this circumstance. Don't let the galaxy fool you. For all that most people make themselves young again, they're generally trapped in old patterns, old ways of thinking. Give an ancient war veteran the body of a 20-year-old, and you still have an ancient war veteran. They just don't creak when they move. Holly's even now still discovering herself, and it let her escape the remaining shackles of Swipe's abuse. Duh. And what did the Undaunted do to this Miss Swipe? Captured her, interrogated, and then executed her. We then used her body double to dismantle her entire organization, strip it of resources, and used a fair chunk of them for a nest egg for the body double, and helped her disappear with a new face, new name, and in a new part of the galaxy. And that's as much as I know. She could walk right up to me and introduce herself, and I wouldn't recognize her. I see. Still, we have yet to discuss the ethics and excuses of a bodyguard falling for his client. Sir Do, the galactic ratios need to be considered here. I am a man. Men are outnumbered 100 to 1. There was no way to stop Holly from endlessly hitting on any bodyguard we gave her, or complaining about not having a male bodyguard. Some standards have to be relaxed, even if for no other reasons as to be able to actually get things done. I do not think such an excuse would be accepted back on Earth. Probably not. But then again, life and standards on Earth are so different that we have almost no context for how to work out here. We're testing boundaries. The situation is so different out here, standards have to be relaxed, because they were made in a scenario that is borderline impossible out here. So I'm closer to a test case than the standard. Does that make more sense? Some. First of all, wdf.reddit.com, rhfu out of cruel, space partona, auto of cruel, space partonon. Olaster, https, www.com, rhfi comments, un ns3x, orioxintu, a wieder.